So up next, we've got Lucas Ngoo with his topic on how to tap into Southeast Asia's potential to scale your startup. Can we get an applause for Lucas Ngoo?
Great. Hi. Hey everyone. How's it going? So last session for the day. Hope everyone still fresh, awake, excited. So this is going to be since it's the last session, so it's going to be pretty much casual sharing, and we'll open up the last half an hour for Q&A. So the sharing is going to be 30 minutes and stuff. So roughly 3 parts that I'll be sharing. First, I'll be sharing about a little bit about our founding story, how we started Carousel from 2012. Second part, I'm going to share about a bit about how we think about the opportunity in Southeast Asia. I think a lot of people here are interested about that, how we scale locally, going global, and so on. And the third part, we'll be sharing about how we look at going forward, what we mean by how we build Classifieds 4.0 going forward. So that's the 3 part. So I'm Lucas, co-founder, or one of the co-founders of Carousel, CTO at Carousel. So so a little bit about Carousel. So Carousel, we're a mobile marketplace that allows you to buy and sell anything. If you want to sell something, take a photo, put in your price, put in your title, and list it up for sale. In 30 seconds, you can sell your things. If you want to buy, you can chat with the person, you can meet up, or you can do a bank transfer and mail to the person. So it's very image-centric, easy to browse, and it has social features. So we have a groups feature where you can join groups of your interest and so on. So that's a little bit about Carousel. So how we started, so for myself, grew up Malaysian, grew up, I'm from Port Dickson, if anyone knows that, so grew up there most of my life. So I went to Singapore in 2008, NUS, National University Singapore, to study computer engineering. That's where I met my co-founders, right? So at 2011, so under the school program, so I had a chance to go to Silicon Valley for 1 year. So it's a NUS program where they send students to Silicon Valley for 1 year. You work there, you also study part-time courses there. So at that time, that's where I met Sirui. So Sirui is the guy in the middle. He's my co-founder. He's our CEO now. He was my roommate at the time. So these are how things happen, right? I mean, you meet your co-founders at the most unexpected places out of all. So he was my roommate. We stayed in the house for the whole year. Before starting Carousel, we'll be tinkering with ideas, random ideas, and so on. We came up with a lot of failed ideas, things that doesn't work, and so on. But we kept at it. So what fascinated us in Silicon Valley is that we've seen how people are so passionate about using technology to solve problems at a large scale. I mean, you look at the time when Instagram got acquired, when WhatsApp got acquired. Instagram only have 13 employees, but they are serving 30 million users. WhatsApp, they have 35 employees. They are serving 450 million users at the time when they got acquired by Facebook. So it's the power of using technology to solve problems at a large scale that really inspired us. Really things that happens in Silicon Valley, like you go to you see things like people are coding at a train, they are talking about ideas in a coffee shop and so on. That really inspired us when we come back. We wanted to come back to Southeast Asia. We wanted to solve a problem, our own problem. So how did the problem of Carousel came about, right? So it's actually come from our own personal problem as well. We have lots of, we are gadget geeks. We have lots of things lying around. We bought a bunch of things that we never use. And instead of throwing it away, we want to sell it away. But at the time, 5 years ago, to sell it, it's really troublesome. You go to forums and so on. You go to websites, the whole process takes 30 minutes to sell. And at the time mobile just started, then we say, hey, why don't we take this existing problem and use mobile to solve it? So we joined a competition called Hackathon. So Carousel actually started from Hackathon. So Singapore Startup Weekend 2012. That's where we pitched our idea. We built the first version of Carousel. I mean, version that is a prototype in 54 hours. We pitched it, the judges like it. We won the competition. So that really kind of gives us the confidence that, hey, it's not just our problem. A lot of people faces the same problem as us. So because of that, we actually decided to do this full time. My co-founders dropped his honors and so on. We just kind of, hey, let's go all into this, start building it. So we spent the next, before launching, we spent the next 3 months actually building the app. So this was, we started building it really seriously May 2012. At the time, we don't know how to build an app, right? I mean, that's part of startup as well. I mean, you don't know a lot of things when you started. We learned how to code ourselves. We learned how to design things ourselves. We spent the next 3 months building the app, and we finally launched it in 13 August just now. Just now, I think before the talk, someone was asking, how do you guys know how to scale a server at the time? We don't. I mean, to kind of share, the first day that we launched Carousel, the server actually crashed. We were using some shared hosting and stuff. So we have to, in the same day, we have to learn how to migrate the whole infrastructure to AWS. We stay up overnight, and thankfully we survived, and Carousel continued to grow from there. So every day we learn about new things and stuff. Doesn't mean we know everything from the first day. So we launched in 13 August. It's been great, I guess, few years. This was kind of skipping a lot ahead. It was 3 of us when we started. Then we grow it to 5 person, we grow it to 10 person. So currently in 2017, we have close to 200 people in terms of engineering, the tech organization, close to 100 people in our team. That's pretty much kind of how the idea of Carousel came about and how we grew it. So I think kind of going into the second part, right? So there's one of the really the opportunities that we are having here is massive, right? I mean, Southeast Asia alone. I mean, if you look at where in this world where the story is going to play out in the next 5 years is definitely going to be in Southeast Asia, right? I mean, if you go back 5 years ago, if you ask, is there a lot of venture capital in this area? Probably not a lot. Is there a lot of people paying attention in this region? Probably not a lot. Whereas if you come to kind of 2007, you have lots of interest in this region. You have lots of VCs coming in. You have China companies coming in. You also have a set of entrepreneurs that have paved the way. You have Grab, local startups like Grab and so on that have paved the way and scaled globally. So the real opportunity of Southeast Asia, we always say, is that there are 600 million people, population in Southeast Asia. More than half of them are actually not on the internet. And when they're going to come on the internet in the next few years, it's going to come from mobile itself. That's really the great opportunity that we see. But there's also challenges as well in Southeast Asia. People look at Southeast Asia as just they treat it as one big region, but it's really not. When we started Carousel, the first country that we relaunched outside of Singapore is actually Malaysia. So it's a different culture, different language, varying levels of infrastructure, all the way from transportation to internet connection, as well as users at different stages of maturity, right? So Malaysia is one of the most advanced, but if you were to scale in other Southeast Asia countries, people are at different stages. For example, e-commerce as well. If you look at Singapore and Malaysia, people are quite mature. People are familiar with e-commerce. They're using e-commerce. But if you go to another countries, people are just starting to come on the internet itself. So you need to localize your product. You need to not just localize your product, but actually also educate the users. For example, a few years ago when we enter Indonesia, I mean, Indonesia has seen a massive growth, right? I mean, but when we enter at the time, a lot of people are actually the first time they come on internet. So we have to do a lot of campaigns to educate people about selling online itself. Is it safe? Is it so on and so forth? Really, Malaysia is a great launch pad to the Southeast Asia. I mean, it's projected by 2020, the e-commerce in Malaysia is going to be 200 billion ringgit. And you've seen lots of government initiatives have come up that supports local entrepreneurship with the budget that focusing on that, the world first digital free trade zone. In terms of the kind of the opportunity in Malaysia itself, you look at the stats in 2016, the total amount raised by startups in Malaysia, it's 84 million US dollar. And you also have a lot of organizations like Magic 500 Startup, MDEC, Cradle, is actually building up the ecosystem and supporting local entrepreneurs. So I think opportunities is definitely here. Probably you guys, everyone that is here that's starting your own startup, scaling your own startup, or thinking about starting your own startup, is definitely the best time to be starting, right? I mean, looking at all these signs, the next 5 years is going to be definitely very interesting. So how do we? I guess a little bit quickly, we can go more. I mean, you guys can ask more questions later in the Q&A. How do we scale in Southeast Asia? I mean, first, this is the companies that, Malaysian companies that have scaled in the region. It's really the approach of solving for a global problem with a local execution, right? So, I mean, when we first started, we knew that we have to be a global company from a first day. I mean, if you think about it, Singapore, there's only 5 to 6 million population. Eventually, you're going to hit a ceiling. There's only so much people that you can kind of target and stuff. So within the first day that we launched Carousel, you know that you have to scale beyond Singapore. You have to think outside. You have to think outside the country itself and think global. So similarly as well for startups that are in Malaysia as well, it has to solve a global problem. That's really the first step. But going into solving kind of what does it mean, right? The second-hand economy for Carousel is actually, if you kind of look at globally, it's actually $1 trillion industry. Probably relates to everyone, right? Probably everyone has things that are lying around at home. You buy a lot of things that you put it there, you throw it away, and so on. If you add all this up, it's $1 trillion economy. It's a sizable size, and e-commerce in Southeast Asia is to surpass 25 billion by 2020. So we're in 7 countries, 19 cities, over 80 million listings. Out of that, 32 million listings are sold. So the 7 countries will be Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Australia. So kind of how do we go local? I mean, I guess obvious to everyone is that the first thing that we do when we enter Malaysia is to localize the app to different language and actually hire up the local team, right? I mean, we're sitting in Singapore, how do we know? We probably thought Malaysia is like Singapore, or Singapore is like Malaysia, but it's a different culture and so on. So the first thing that we do is really to build up the local team and building up the local playbook for us to enter. So in Singapore, how it started is, I think every company's actually, every idea's actually started small, right? When we started in Singapore, we actually started in schools, universities. We actually started with the female fashion group, and eventually it scales from there. Word of mouth take over. People have a successful transaction on Carousel, they started telling their friends, and then that's how things spread. And we go into Malaysia. Similarly, we have to localize it. We find the local schools, we find the local community. Where are where are the female sellers go on weekends to sell their stuff. That's where we'll go down. We'll go down to kaboot sale and all those things to get users and so on. Eventually, we grew the team. We started to have more localized marketing campaigns. So we work with local celebrities and so on. So recent campaign that we run is with Zul Arifin. It was a good campaign that we run that generated a lot of interest. Hyperlocal app experience. So the great thing about Carousel is that in terms of the app itself is a single app. So we don't have different code bases that is catered for, or different servers that catered for different countries. It's the same app, it's the same server in the same location that scales throughout. The only difference experience is the home screen, right? It's a different home screen that we cater. It's the different special collections that we cater. These are some of the different categories that we have. For example, in Malaysia, one of the top categories is Muslimah fashion, and so on. So really empowering the local community is the local stories that finding the nuggets of local community, local stories that inspire usage in Carousel. So some of the great users that we have on Carousel. I mean, if any of you here is thinking about starting entrepreneurship, use Carousel. We have an average Carouseller in Malaysia can earn up to 4.8 ringgit in Malaysia. So some of the stories are like Shirley. She earns up to 7K just by selling K-pop. She's a 40-plus-year-old housewife. She just sells on Carousel. She's making 7K a month. K-pop merchandise is a huge thing. Yeah. So we also have Shahizan, also designs his own thing and sell. We also have Vic that actually started her own business. She started making handmade for weddings. She started selling on Carousel, and now she's fully running the business for events and so on. So hiring local talent, that's definitely, we talked about it just now, hiring the team to execute there. So I guess finally, before we go to Q&A, what's ahead for Carousel, right? I mean, like a lot of people ask us, hey, you already have the app and so on. What's next for you guys and stuff? So I can talk about definitely in terms of where we see Carousel growing is definitely global. I mean, the problem that we're solving is definitely a global one. Anywhere in the world you go, people will need Carousel in order to clear away their things and so on. So definitely besides the 7 countries, we want to go more ahead. In terms of the product, really more or less 2 things, right? One is in the selling experience and in the buying experience. So I can talk about the buying experience. It's really, for the buying experience, it's really completing the loop. Now if you use Carousel, you probably have to meet up or you have to bank transfer and stuff. So definitely payments and eventually logistics is going to be completing the loop. Just click a button and you can sell and you can complete the transaction on Carousel. Regarding the selling side, so let's look at the evolution of classifieds, right? So you go through what is classifieds 1.0 all the way to 4.0. So classifieds 1.0 was print. This is probably when 20, 30 years ago, it used to be, even maybe now, you flip to a page of a newspaper, you saw an advertisement, and then you say, hey, this is an interesting ad, let me call up this person. And you call the person and you buy the items. So that was print, that was 1.0. And then in the 90s, the internet came along. We have forums, we have sites like Craigslist. So selling become easier. Instead of waiting the whole day, you sell in 30 minutes. But it's still troublesome. To sell something, you still need to use your digital camera to take a photo and upload it, crop it, and so on. It's still 30 minutes. So when we started 5 years ago, it was mobile first. What Carousel pioneered. There was no mobile first solution. We started it, one of the first in the world. So the experience becomes easier. Instead of 30 minutes, it becomes 30 seconds. Just an app on a phone, you just snap a photo. That's it, right? Snap a photo, enter your title, description, price, and you list it up for sale. So what is 4.0? How can we go from 30 seconds to 3 seconds? What's the next step for us? Something that we are really excited about. Being a technology geek ourselves, something that we're really excited about is really the recent kind of advancement in the artificial intelligence space, right? In particular, one sort of artificial intelligence, which is deep learning itself. If you were to ask us at 2012, is deep learning even possible? It's really not possible. Deep learning was just something that some researchers in Google that was making, it probably cost $1 million just to train a large neural network and stuff. But something kind of changed, right, for the past 5 years that makes deep learning actually scalable, and it is what we want to apply. So really three things, right? So we started to get a lot more data. Data is definitely the first thing that has exploded over the past 5 years. People are more social, they're going on mobile, they generated tons of data. As you probably know, data is probably what fuels deep learning and makes it possible. So we have lots of data, lots of images, lots of videos coming in. That's the first thing that makes it possible. The second thing that makes it possible is really the compute and the cloud, right? It's probably Moore's law, getting cheaper and cheaper, compute getting cheaper and cheaper. You probably don't have a GPU at the time. So over the past 5 years, compute has become cheaper. Definitely cheaper to have a server. You can run servers in the cloud, spin it up anytime. And the third is really in the advancement. People have figured out better ways to train very deep neural networks. So this has allowed it to happen. So really classified as 4.0 in terms of the seller side is in what we call AI first. How can we move from mobile first classifieds to an AI first classifieds? And this is what we are building and pioneering. So there's a lot of stuff that we're working into this. So definitely the vision is that in the near future, in Carousel, now if you want to sell on Carousel, you have to take a photo, you have to enter the title, description, and price. How do you know how to price your second-hand MacBook and so on? So usually you go and search for the marketplace, look at what other people are selling and try to price it the best. But we actually have all this data for the past 5 years. We actually collected tons of data. What if we can use computer vision? You can just take a photo of your MacBook. It tells you that, hey, this is a MacBook. This is how much you should price it. You just have to confirm it, right? So instead of spending 30 seconds, you just snap a photo. Okay, this information is good. Tap it. That's it. 3 seconds. One of the things we want to build is what we call Carousel. So a lot of times this is actually to inspire. This is something in research phase and stuff. This is actually to inspire selling. So how many times you guys actually wonder if you sell all your things at your home, how much you will get? How many things you actually have in your home that you don't use? So what Carousel will do is that you can just fire up the app. It's a camera. You can start scanning around your room. It will tell you how much is the price for everything at your home. You can say, hey, after scanning everything, maybe I can make 5,000 by selling everything. So that's one of the things that we want to be building towards. Some of the things that we do have closer to production, not sure why the GIF doesn't work. It's really in suggestions, right? I mean, if you use Carousel now in Singapore, it's not launched yet in Malaysia. You can take a photo. It suggests you a few categories, even suggests you the titles that you should put in. So you don't have to type anything, you just have to tap and confirm. So these are the things that we're working on. More things that we're working on would be a personalized experience. Now you open Carousel, you see a grid of categories. But what will happen is, what if the more you use the app, the more it understands about your buying and browsing behavior. Every time you open the app, you only see things that you like. Isn't that a better shopping experience? So we want to building that. We also been experimenting a lot with conversational kind of experience. Instead of typing in a search term, you can just speak into it. So how we are enabling an AI first experience? I mean, this is a transformation, right? I mean, it used to be mobile. Probably 5 years ago, if you see, mobile was 5 years ago. Mobile was something that is very uncommon, I guess, for product teams. You used to have just even Facebook had that, right? I mean, they used to have just one single mobile team that works on mobile. This is the mobile team, and the rest of the company is working on web stuff. But eventually, that has to change, right? Now, Facebook or any company in the world, you have Scrum teams where in a team itself, you do have your mobile engineers, you have your iOS, Android, web, back-end engineers, everything. Mobile is just one of the engineers. Similar with how machine learning, how AI will evolve as well. That's what we believe. Now, if you look at a lot of companies, you have that special AI team or special machine learning team that works on deep stuff and all those things. But of course, it's going to change. I mean, similar to how mobile has changed, this is going to change as well. 2 to 3 years down the road, you know, in a Scrum team, it's just going to be, this is the machine learning engineer and so on. This is what we want to empower every teams in Carousel to be. Some other things would be search, trust, smart pricing, and so on. So really, we talk a lot about what we are doing and so on. Really, it all comes back to the mission of Carousel. It's really to inspire the world to start selling, going global, having local execution, and that's how we plan to do. So we always say, there's a kind of a saying in the company is that we always, actually it's kind of stolen, inspired by Facebook. We're always less than 1% done. And I think that's true for anything, right? I mean that, like even though people say that, oh, you guys are in 7 countries and so on, but for us, it's really is a global mission. Our mission is only 1% done, 1% there. We are only in 7 countries. We want to be everywhere around the world. We want to be pioneering the next generation of classifieds. Who knows what 5.0 might be? Maybe it's like virtual reality or something. I don't know. So I guess the kind of the lesson here is that you are never done. It's always less than 1% done, and that's what we talk about at our company. That's what everyone talk about, and there's way more things that we can achieve than we want to achieve. So that's pretty much some of the sharing. So do want to get questions, any kind of questions, so I'll be answering, because I thought that would be more useful for everyone. So yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Lucas. So now we're just going to open up the floor to some questions.
Try shouting.
So is there going to be a carousel bike? You guys know Mercari is doing Mercari, right? So I believe you guys are aware what they are doing.
Carousel bike.
Carousel, like bike sharing services.
I see.
Do you know what I mean with the question, right?
Yeah.
So your direct original idea was started in Japan. Mercari was there. You guys are invested by Rakuten.
Yeah.
So you guys are kind of like competing to each other right now. They are not here. You guys are not there.
Yeah.
So they are entering into like shopping, video shopping, and also bike services.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to do the same thing here, or are you guys just going to focus on classified?
So for us, there's we don't have, to be honest, we don't have immediate plan for bike sharing, although that's what we use a lot ourselves as well. For us, it's definitely, there's still a lot that we can solve in the classified space. If you look at classified space, there's still the verticals that we haven't really gone into. Right? I mean, like in Singapore, for example, people know Carousel as buying and selling everything. But recently we only started into cars. So now in Singapore, with the acquisition of Kali, the car marketplace last year, we've entered into the car space. Now you can buy and sell cars in Singapore as well. There's also other verticals like properties, jobs and services that we're exploring, and we're definitely, we already seen users actually posting jobs, applying jobs at Carousel. They're already buying and selling cars and houses at Carousel. So that's the direction that we are heading into. But we do want to go into video though. I mean, video is definitely very interesting. Video as well as live streaming itself. I mean, we don't have immediate plans when it will be out, but kind of if you look at how people are actually evolving now, live video is definitely the next thing. I mean, even I'm sure if you scroll through your Facebook feed, probably you'll see that people are selling, broadcasting themselves selling on Facebook. That's the power of live selling, right? I mean, it's just like opening up a store. Instead of just opening up a store, you can maximum get 100 people. You do a live selling, you get millions of buyers. So that's definitely something that we are interested in.
Okay, next.
Hi Lucas, thanks for sharing. My name is Kelvin. I only have one question for you. How do Carousel generate revenue?
Right. Yeah, so we get that question a lot. So yes, we have gone into generating revenue. So how we think about generating revenue? The philosophy is that we don't want to sacrifice the user experience. I mean, we've seen a lot of. I mean, that's also a concern of as a carouseller as well. I mean, am I going to stop be able to use Carousel once you monetize? But at the same time, I want you to monetize because I want to keep using Carousel. So that's the questions that we get a lot. So I guess we have set out that we only want to monetize in a way that we can add value to our users. So what we did, the first thing that we've rolled out in Singapore is the bumps feature, right? So you can still sell for free in Carousel, but if you want to sell it faster, you can actually pay like a 99 cents to bump it up. To post it up. And the other thing that we have worked on is in the cars vertical. So we want to keep it free for casual sellers, but of course if you're a professional, you're dealers, you want extra services. So we work with car dealers in Singapore. They pay us the monthly fees for extra features. So these are how we, so general, you or me, you can still use Carousel for free, but we have these ways to monetize.
Hi, one question. What are the obstacles that you face since the inception of Carousel? Like, it can be anything, but I'd just like to know the obstacles you face and how did you overcome the challenges of building Carousel to where it is today? Oh, and second question. Are you going to be a billion-dollar company?
Yeah, I'll answer the first one first. So I think this is probably true for all entrepreneurs itself, is that you probably never, you don't know what you don't know, in a sense. You probably will not stop learning, right? I mean, our role has kind of changes a lot, and it's actually a lot of self-realization as well. I mean, initially when we started Carousel, probably the challenge is we don't know how to code an app, we don't know how to scale a server, but hey, taking a mindset that you always learn. I think just do it is definitely the best way. So learning how to code, learning how to scale servers, that actually help us survive. Then you kind of go to the next stage, right? Hey, Carousel is my first job. I've never managed people before. How do I start hiring people? I don't know how to do one-on-ones and all those, what is that and stuff. So you start learning how to manage people, you think about management, as you grow the team, you think about organizing the team and so on. And then that actually helps you to get to the next stage. You manage to build a team of maybe 10 to 20 people. After that, you face the next challenge, right? I mean, like, probably communication starts to break when you have 30 people in a company. It used to be what we call shout across the table. It used to be maybe you're 10 people or you're 20 people, you can just shout across the table and everyone is aligned. Everyone understands the mission, everyone is aligned. But kind of a magical thing happens when you hit 30 people is that, you know, you can no longer, you probably can still shout across the table, but I mean, you get the point is that you started to need to have a different way of communicating. You can't just have a very flat structure or something. You probably need to start maybe think about hiring your first manager rather than yourself. You probably need to start thinking about training people in your team to be the manager. So it's not just, it kind of goes from you doing all the work to kind of you having to helping people to succeed, inspiring people and so on. So we kind of learn a lot of that and you started having to juggle between, do we need to have a lot of processes versus do we just be a startup and stuff. So that kind of get you through maybe to about 60 to 100 people, then you kind of hit the next roadblock, right? You started to raise your fund, Series A, Series B. You started to have the stress, I guess. I mean, you're in 7 countries. You probably don't know a lot of things that you don't know. That's where we started to build up our execs team, right? You probably need to start hiring maybe adult supervision into your company, people that have way more experience from you. That's where we've really built up our executive team, having real professionals working with us founders to execute the company, right? So we hired our first executive, JJ. He have a lot of experience. He was from Airbnb. He scaled the Airbnb Asia Pacific business. He joined us. He was like, wow, the first day he joined us, like, oh, there's no water in the office and stuff. Okay, we need to scramble and stuff. But eventually we get through, right? I mean, as you hire more senior executives, they help you to, in a sense, you are still a startup, but they help you to put in processes that allows you to scale. And then we continue to hire our CFO. Wow, you need a CFO? Oh, yes, you need a CFO at this stage. VP of product, VP of engineering. That actually helped us to grow to 200. Who knows? We probably don't know what we need to grow to the next 500. But I guess the really gist of it is you just have to be a lifelong learner. You learn a lot of ways. You need to expand yourself and having great people to come in and build this together with you. That's probably the most important thing. Yeah, second question, yeah, we'll get there, yeah.
Hi Lucas, I'm Gadi from Bumbung. Just got 2 questions for you also. Have you guys ever pivoted along the way? If yes, what was the pivot? The other question is, for you guys to scale to where you are today, 7 other cities across, do you guys needed to raise a lot of funds to target the first 2 or the first couple of cities, or what was the magic number for you before you realized, like, okay, hey, you know, I want to go to Malaysia now, then I want to go to Indonesia and the rest? What was that point? You had to, of course, you had to raise money first, but you know, what was your thought process to leading there?
So, sorry, can you repeat the
first question? Is pivot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
then what? Yeah.
Yeah. So we were quite thankful that we. I mean, yes, pivot is. I mean, it's part of startups and stuff. But we were quite thankful that the original vision stays the same. The execution has, of course, kind of pivoted a lot of times. I mean, we built something. Probably the first version of app crashes a lot. We have to improve and so on. Probably the first marketing campaign doesn't work. We have to pivot and stuff. But the one thing that stays the same is really the mission, right? I mean, from the start of the company to now, it is really still to inspire the world to start selling. That doesn't change, and there's a long way to go for that. It's just as long as the North Star is the same, the execution can take different forms, but as long as everyone in the company is aligning towards that doesn't change for us. Yeah. So second question is, how do we know when do we? Okay, how much money do we? So initially. Right. Yeah. So, so initially we didn't spend a lot of money to grow in Singapore. A lot of the initial success in Singapore is actually coming from word of mouth, and this actually speaks to building a great product that solves a core fundamental problem What we are building is solving a core fundamental problem. Everyone will have a need, going back to 1,000 years probably, people have a need to buy and sell. That's a core thing. We're making the experience better. So once you have a great product that solves people's problem, you don't need a lot of money to, you just need a lot of execution, right? So we actually go down on the ground, we go to schools, we go to flea markets, we paste posters and all those things. Just things of very, very creative ways to scale. Because initially, you cannot expect, I mean, there's no funding and so on. You can't expect to splurge a lot on marketing campaign. You just have to do everything yourself. And that actually helped us to, once a group of users successfully sell on Carousel, they started to tell their friends, and then their friends started to tell their friends. So word of mouth kind of carry over, and it kind of generated into that. I don't think we have a very like sophisticated numbers on anything, and to see when we want to enter new markets. When we decided to enter Singapore was it's not driven by numbers, and it's just more like you get the sense that most of the people around you have started to know about Carousel in Singapore, and you have a good sense that the word of mouth will kind of takes care of itself. Of course, we still invest a lot of energy into Singapore, but you get the sense that, hey, you already start hearing a lot about Carousel. That's where we say, okay, let's go to our next market, which is the closest to us, which is Malaysia. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Or so there's no kind of hard and fast number that we have there. I mean, we thought a lot about it, of course. I mean, of course, you have to consider a lot of things, like are you going to hire people and stuff. But I wouldn't say we have. I mean, now probably we look more into that, right? How we decide on the 7 countries, probably looking at a few things like the readiness of the marketplace. Where Carousel works well is really in the city-state that has already a good e-commerce behavior, because having e-commerce actually inspire the second-hand economy, because people are already educated in that, therefore they come. So looking at the stage of e-commerce is definitely one thing that we look at. Looking at the connectivity of the market in terms of transportation, because people need to travel around, the postage, as well as the internet connectivity is the second thing that we look at. Third is, of course, what is the total addressable market, right? I mean, there are certain countries that is very interesting for us. There's no incumbents and so on, but we decided not to go into it and focus on other countries because there's higher total addressable size of the countries. And you also look at competitors. One of the things, I mean, of course, if given 2 choices, you want to look at countries that has high addressable market, as well as you have incumbents that are lazy, right? For example, some of the countries that go in, the dominant players there are still on the desktop. They don't even have a mobile app and stuff. And that actually gives you an easy entry point to enter a certain markets. Once you come in, you have a clear differentiator. You're mobile first and so on. So these are the different factors that we kind of put it out, if you say a spreadsheet, and rank it, the factors. But initially when you start a startup, we don't have all these things. You just go on your sense.
Can you tell us, I see that you have a lot of very big team. You have your AI team, iOS, Android. Can you tell us about how your team looks like when you're 6 months old to maybe 1 year old, when you just started Carousel?
Yeah, so at that time it's just 5 of us. I was the iOS engineer and backend engineer. My co-founder was the UX designer. My other co-founder, Marcus, was the UI designer. We were the initial team that built out the first iOS version. After that, we have our first Android engineer join us, and our first back-end engineer join us. Both of them are still with us today. Now our original Android engineer is working on AI stuff now. Our our original back-end engineer, he's scaled to become an engineering manager now, right? So he's managing the team, he's managing releases across the company and so on. So I think, yeah, that was the initial team.
Hello, my name is Amar. It's somehow related to along those lines of because you mentioned about like in the beginning you kind of like learn because I came from a technical background as well, so I was wondering because you say you maybe because I know how to do website, but now like people are using like mobile, like doing mobile, right? So probably you have to like learn a lot and like but you want to start executing fast. So maybe you can explain like what like specifically what do you actually like do you like go to like when you say you just do it, right? Like, but do you go like through like Stack Overflow Stack Overflow or like online resources? Like what's the detail of like learning and also when you when you started to scale, like bringing more people, do you like look for like friends or you like coders from like the group of your friends, or is it from like referrals? That's something. Thank you.
So you're talking about mobile in how we learn mobile in specific or in general or yeah. 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 I think I don't know, just watch a lot of videos, read books and start doing it. Yes, so you just do both at the same time. I think in general, I think everyone is probably able to learn anything. You just have to put your mind and soul into it. If you put your mind and soul into it, you can learn everything. That's probably it. And the second question is, yeah, so we it's a combination of getting friends as well as we just go down to career fairs. I mean, I know there's a Magic career fair tomorrow, right? So go to that, yeah. And that's how we get our first people as well.
All right, thank you so much, Lucas. That ends the Q&A questions. So
Yeah, thanks.
another round of applause.